Hi, Acadiana. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. This is Thursday, January the 16th, and we're looking ahead at this potential winter system that could be affecting parts of the Gulf Coast in the south. So this is your winter weather update with some of the latest models. And if you remember early in the week, the GFS model was going for a big snowstorm and the Euro really wasn't talking about anything. And then over the past couple of days, the GFS kind of backing away from winter weather while the Euro started to bite. And now we're starting to see the Euro kind of go back away from that winter precipitation like the GFS. But there are other global models that are still forecasting some of this winter type weather going into next week. But remember, our global models are the ones that go out the farthest. Our medium range models will start to give us a little clearer picture, probably starting on Friday, and then your higher resolution short range models will start to kick in Saturday and Sunday. So then we'll get a better picture of what we think is going to be happening here going into next week. But first of all, let's go ahead and look at all the different pieces of the puzzle. What's going on right now, we had a bit of a low out here in the Gulf of Mexico. That's kind of moved off toward the east, and that kept the rain away. And we've got a bit of a ridge of high pressure that's in place right now. That's really giving us a very, very sunny day. A little bit farther down the road going into Friday, got another low that's going to kind of cruise its way across Oklahoma and Arkansas, and that will drag a cold front through the area as we go into Friday night and Saturday, bringing a chance for some rain. But that's not the big cold. The big cold is still up here along the Canadian border and getting into the Canadian prairies. But as we look at the Canadian satellite, we got a bit of a low pressure area that's out here over the prairies, and that's going to kind of make its way off toward the east and move into this great big polar vortex that we've got over Hudson Bay and in the eastern part of Canada. Once this gets out of the way, that's when we're going to be seeing this very cold Siberian Express type of air straight from the North Pole diving all the way down to the south toward the Gulf Coast. So that is where our cold air is going to be coming from. So there's your upper level pattern right now. In fact, we're getting a little more ridging here in the south, so that's why temperatures are a bit more mild. We're also seeing a little bit more sunshine. But then as we go into the upper level pattern on Tuesday, you can see that polar vortex is really starting to kind of rotate around here into Canada and pushing into portions of the Great Lakes. And that's what kind of opens the door to allow that frigid air to dive southward over toward the Gulf Coast. Now, if that cold air is in place and you can get another system to develop over the Gulf of Mexico, that would be your moisture source, and if the temperatures are cold enough, we could see some wintry type of precipitation. So temperatures are going to actually be somewhat mild here starting today and going into Friday and Saturday. In fact, I think we might even see temperatures hovering close to 70 as we get into Saturday. So cold weather preparations today, tomorrow, Saturday. Those are your days to get it done before it gets a little more uncomfortable on Sunday. You can see your forecast temperatures there for Sunday afternoon. Most of Acadiana probably going to be staying in the 40s, and with those blustery winds that are going to be coming in behind that Arctic front, we are going to be seeing wind chills probably in the 20s and 30s most of the day. So again, if you got to do some pipe wrapping or if you got to pull in your plants and things like that, you're probably going to want to get that all wrapped up by Saturday night. Meanwhile, as we go down the road into Tuesday morning, you can see there will be plenty of cold air in place. In fact, Tuesday morning's lows dropping into the 20s all the way down to the I-10 corridor and then upper 20s to around 30 down toward the coast. So we're going to definitely see plenty of cold air to come in. So if we can get low pressure to develop over the Gulf of Mexico and a bit of a wave to kind of move just to the north in the mid-levels, then we might be able to pull some of that Gulf moisture up into the colder air mass, and that's what would set up a winter type of situation. So let's kind of go back in time, and one of the things that we like to look at is consistency between model run to model run. Not just different models agreeing with each other, but we want to see the consistency from model run to model run. So this is the GFS forecast that ran late yesterday evening, and the forecast time period here is for Tuesday through Friday of next week. And you can see as we start, this is where it's going to loop around. That's the start at Tuesday, and you can see high pressure is in control so much that pretty much in the early part of the week, all of the precipitation is shoved way out into the Gulf of Mexico, and the air is just too dry to produce any rain or snow. But then there's a secondary system that kind of comes in toward the latter part of the week, and that could potentially bring some snows over parts of the Mid-South. The next model run that ran very, very early this morning is also showing about the same thing, where we're seeing kind of a non-event going into Tuesday and Wednesday, but then another system kind of lifting in, bringing a better chance for rain as we go into Thursday and Friday, with most of the winter precip staying well to our north. And this is the current one. This is the one that ran earlier this morning. And again, it looks very similar to the previous run, but there are a little few blips there of some winter weather along the Gulf Coast going into Tuesday and Wednesday, but it looks like most of the action stays out in the Gulf waters before a next system comes in and lifts some of that moisture in. So the GFS, even though it really backed away from a complete non-event, now looks like it's starting to pull a little bit more moisture back toward the coast. So you winter weather haters, you can't quite celebrate just yet, but you snow lovers, don't give up hope, because we might still see some of that winter type of precip. But you can see here that the GFS going through Friday, indicating more snows across the Mid-South, Mid-Mississippi Valley, but you do see that there are a couple of areas of showing at least a little bit of accumulating snow here over South Texas, and maybe down here in Bayou Country in southeastern portions of Louisiana. So the GFS, even though still really showing what I would say a non-event, but there are still a couple of blips on there that might give us hope that we could see some winter weather. And I know there are some that are wish casting, and there are some that are wish casting that we don't see any of that, but that's what the GFS is showing right now. And I wanted to show you the sounding too. This is a forecast sounding, so this is what we call this QT. And the weather balloon is what this is, and the weather balloon, as it goes up higher in the sky, it measures your temperature, your dew point, your wind speeds and things as it goes from the surface up to the top of the atmosphere. Well, rather than this being the actual weather balloon, this is what the forecast for GFS is showing what the atmosphere would look like if we released a weather balloon on Tuesday morning coming up. So this is what it's trying to predict. And down at the surface, you can see it's plenty cold. Temperatures are down below freezing. And really the column of air going up, because remember this line right here, that line right there, if I can get a line to draw just one line, and it's not going to do that. But anyway, there is your 0 degree Celsius line. So everything that's this way is above freezing, and everything that's this way is below freezing, and as you go up in the atmosphere like that. So that's height. So you can see that just about everything here is below freezing, but the dew point really starts to drop off here. So you've got a pretty dry column of air that's in between here. The farther apart your temperature and your dew point are, the drier your air mass is. So if this green line and this red line were right next to each other, we would be talking about a lot of moisture. But since they're farther apart, the air mass is relatively dry. So even though the temperatures would support some winter type of precipitation, the air mass, according to this forecast, is just way, way too dry to produce anything. So that's why the GFS is kind of backed off on any snow. Let's move over to the Euro, and this is yesterday's Euro. Now, the Euro model is a little bit different. The GFS goes out 16 days every single run. The Euro model at 12Z and 0Z goes out 15 days, and then the ones that run at 6Z and 18Z, that in between those 12 hours, only run out 6 days. So what I'm going to be showing you here is yesterday's 12Z Euro, and you can see that it does produce some pretty decent winter weather there into Tuesday, and even another round that could be coming into Thursday and Friday. But then the next one that came down overnight last night, which still goes through that period all the way through Friday, is still showing some winter weather moving across parts of Louisiana with indications of maybe some snow there. But the newest one here, now this I can only show you, if you notice here, I'm going all the way, actually this is actually going through about Friday morning. This is also going through about Friday morning. And it looks like this one here is only going through about Wednesday morning, because this is the 6Z model. And again, it only goes out 6 days. So we can see that 6th day, which is Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. This is the latest model, and you can see it's very similar to what the GFS's trend has been doing, and pulling more cold, dry air down toward the Gulf Coast while shoving more of the moisture farther to the south out into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's why the Euro model seems to be backing off. And if you look at the snowfall totals, and again, this only goes through Wednesday morning, there will probably be some additional snowfall coming in into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday across parts of maybe the Mid-South, the Arklatex, up through the Tennessee Valley. But right now, since this is only showing through Wednesday, really is going with more of a non-event. And the same thing with the Euro sounding. You can see that our temperatures are plenty cold here. Down here at 25 degrees at the surface, and everything you can see here is to the left of the freezing point, that 0 degrees Celsius. So even though the air mass would be able to be cold enough to produce winter type of precipitation, it's just way too cold or way too dry. You got a good spread here at the bottom. You got this where it's close right here. This would be more like cloud cover in this column right here. And if there was any precipitation that developed in this moist column here, it would most likely start to dry out as it hit and evaporate as it hits this drier air mass farther down toward the south. So the Euro forecast sounding is also showing a little bit more of a non-event. So let's go through some of our longer range ensemble models. And if you didn't watch yesterday, ensemble models are the same model run over and over and over again, but they introduce just little minor tweaks because, as you know, whenever you're forecasting weather, there's always something that's going to mess up your forecast. So there's always something different that you're not going to see, and that can truly change your entire forecast. So what the Ensemble suite does is it kind of takes into consideration some of these other variables. The deterministic models that I showed you before basically say, this is what's going to happen at this very moment. The Ensemble suite gives you 20 different scenarios of what could happen. So you get a little bit of a difference, and you can find the different averages that are there as well. So when you look at this, there's 20 different forecasts that have run, and about half of them are still showing some sort of winter precip over parts of the Gulf Coast and including South Louisiana. So that's still kind of buying into the possibility that we could see some accumulating winter type of precip here at home. Now, here are the snow totals. What this map, even though it's the GFS, or the GEFS rather, and it's an ensemble model, what this map does is it takes all 20 of those forecasts and averages them and gives you your snowfall totals. So you can see there's still the potential. You could see some accumulating snows over central and northern Louisiana, maybe some of that even sneaking its way into the parts of the Acadiana region as well. But it looks like most of Acadiana is going to stay somewhere in that maybe half an inch to an inch range. And then as you get into the bluer colors up here, you're talking about 2, 3, 4, and 5 inches of snow. So the Jeff's Ensemble suite is still forecasting some winter weather to hit Acadiana. So, like I said, you winter haters, you can't celebrate yet, and you snow lovers, you don't need to give up hope that it might snow still. So here's your Canadian model, which is one that we don't depend on quite as much, but you can see that it is producing significant amounts of snow across central and northern Louisiana and a mixed bag of precip over a large part of Acadiana with heavier rains down to the south. Now, what the Canadian model is showing is that cold dome of high pressure isn't going to go quite as far to the south, so we can actually see a low generating over the Gulf of Mexico and moving a little bit closer to the coast. If this verifies, then obviously we're going to be seeing more moisture in the atmosphere, and with the colder temperatures in place, that would indicate that we would see a winter event across Acadiana. And the Icon model is a little bit more similar to the Canadian, but it is calling for more rain over the Acadiana region and then quickly transitioning over towards snow as you get into Cenla and the northern parts of the state. So we still don't have a whole lot of agreement when it comes to the 4 global models, and then the ensemble models, about half of them are calling for snow. So as I said, we know the cold air is going to be coming in, but when it comes to the precipitation, whether if we're going to get any, how much we would get, and even some of the timing too is a bit off. It could start as early as Monday night, and it could start as late Tuesday night into early Wednesday. So that's what we're looking at right now. But as I said, this is what we do know. This is already pretty much in ink on the script that it is going to be very, very cold as we go into next week. So for you folks that are out there, check on your neighbors. Make sure you got the supplies that you need. Again, I don't think this is going to be a panic buying kind of thing. You just need to have enough stuff to get you through a couple of days. It's not going to be really that bad. But if we were to get some freezing rain, you need to be prepared for power outages. Make sure you check on your neighbors too. Pets, they are definitely going to be needed to take care of because the temperatures are going to be well below freezing in many cases. So if you can, bring them in. If you can't, or let's say you have livestock, make sure that they do have enough water that isn't going to freeze. You don't want a frozen water bowl out there because the pets won't be able to drink that, and they need to drink their water, and they do need to have some extra shelter when the temperatures are this cold. Pipes. You probably should insulate your pipes. If you have exposed pipes, especially if you live north of 190, I think those are the areas that are going to be a little bit more prime for pipe bursting type of cold, while from the I-10 corridor southward, it's going to be a little bit less likely. But if your pipes are exposed, you do want to go ahead and take those into consideration and try to get that stuff wrapped up by the time you get to the end of the weekend, because as I said, temperatures are going to be mild today, tomorrow, and again on Saturday. And for your plants, temperatures are going to be dropping. You need to bring the plants in. If you can't bring them in, you're going to have to cover these with some of these temperatures expected to drop into the mid-20s and the possibility of seeing freezing temperatures for more than 12 hours. Even covering them, it's going to be a rough go for plants that aren't able to come in. But if you've got potted plants, go ahead and bring those in. Even some of your cold hardy plants probably aren't going to be able to make it with temperatures getting below 25. So that's where we are right now on January the 16th. So it's mid-morning, early afternoon on January the 16th. We are still 5 to 6 days away from where we could see this potential winter type of system. So global models, as I said, they're going to continue to flip-flop, but tomorrow we'll start to get into that medium range models, a little more higher resolution. They run a little bit more often, so you get more information. And then as we get into Saturday, or more likely going into Sunday, that's when you start to be able to see the picture in the short range forecasts and the higher resolution stuff. So the picture will become clearer, but right now, at this point, I can tell you it looks like it's going to be a little bit less of the winter weather event than what we were seeing earlier this week, but that doesn't mean it couldn't change. So you might as well go ahead and get yourself prepared for some very cold weather and the potential that you might have to stay home for a couple of days because of that winter weather. Well, I hope you enjoy these little broadcasts. If you do, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications. And also don't forget to check my social media pages, both on Facebook and X, when the new Euro model comes down that's extended, that goes out a few more days, let's say early this afternoon. I'll be popping those up on social media, and any other changes or updates will be going there. And of course, you can catch Acadiana Weather Today tomorrow morning at around 7 o'clock. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Enjoy the rest of your sunny Thursday, and I'll see you on Friday morning.